everyone, and welcome back to The Trainer's Wife. It is the beginning of a new year, and when I set out to do my very first episode, interviewing a trainer's wife, I had no idea what this journey would lead me to, but I am so grateful for what I have found. I want to say thank you to the ladies who have shared their stories with all of us so far and invite others to join as well. You have a story to tell, and someone needs to hear it. I also want to take a moment to say thank you to all of you who have reached out personally or on social media. For those who share my posts, the actual podcast, and help promote these stories that recognize the women of the Western performance horse industry, I appreciate you so much. I have a lot planned for 2026, and it starts right here today. First of all, if you're watching this podcast on YouTube, you will see the presentation notes. But if you're listening on Spotify or Apple, don't worry, you can still get the presentation. Just subscribe to my newsletter and I will send it to you for free. See the link in the show notes. Okay, back to it. This is a solo episode, and it's the beginning of something new I'm trying. A short mini-series on a theme that has been changing my life. And if you're listening and you're someone who holds a lot together, your home, your people, your husband, your business, then I think this is going to land. Because this isn't an episode about how to be stronger. We are already strong. This is an episode about something that comes after strength. It's about permission. Bigger picture, it's about the idea of resilience versus permission, creating a balance between the two, and for me, learning to choose permission first. Last week, I visited a counselor for the first time in many years. I went because I'm in a season of caregiving for my dad, and I needed a place to sort through everything that comes with that, the emotional weight, the responsibility, and the uncertainty. A few days later, I was talking with my sister, and something came out of me that I didn't even realize was there. Out loud, I started listing how many times I've changed my life in the last several years. I left a long marriage, then a long-term relationship. I started a new job. I bought a house on my own. I left that job that I loved, sold that house that I loved, and moved to Oklahoma. I bought another house, not a great one, and took a job that's stable, but not really one I love. Here's the thing. I made those last decisions because they needed to be made. There was no one else to do it. My dad's health needed attention, and more than that, he was surrounded by people who were taking advantage of him. So I stepped into a caregiver role, one I wasn't asked to take on, especially not by him. As I was talking with my sister, this part surprised me the most. I said, I made all these big changes and now I feel frustrated. I feel unmotivated, my purpose feels blurry, and I'm a little depressed. I feel emotionally flat, like my battery has completely run out. So I want to pause here. Because if you've ever felt like that, if you've ever wondered, what is wrong with me? Why can't I get it together? I want you to hear this very clearly. Motivation doesn't disappear because you're lazy. I was pretty sure I had just turned lazy, or at least that's what I was panicking about. When I say panic, I would be sitting on the couch with my mind going a million miles per hour, knowing what I needed to be doing, but I could barely force myself to get up and do the things that had to be done. Never mind the fact that I was getting up at 4 a.m., working all day, taking care of my dad on both ends of the day, producing a podcast, and kind of running two households. Those are not the actions of a lazy person. I felt like I was being lazy because I left dishes in the sink, or I got behind on the laundry, or I didn't make my dad's bed. I was not dealing with the mountain of leaves in my yard, and I was going to bed at 8 o'clock. Anyway, what I've noticed in myself is that during long seasons of responsibility, my energy can just go quiet. And then I start judging myself for it. When really, I think it's my mind and body asking for something different, asking me to slow down, to take a minute, to rest. Here's the insight that came out of the conversation with my sister, and it's the heart of this episode. She reminded me that taking care of our parents is a season that many people go through, and we practice resilience to survive it. The biggest thing she did was give me permission to rest and take time for myself guilt-free. Somehow, I was able to translate her giving me permission to giving myself permission. It was a game changer. For most of my life, I have been choosing resilience over permission. Before I go further, when I use these two words, I'm not talking about textbook definitions, although I did take the time to look them up, and I'll share them with you. I'm talking about the language I found from my own experience. Resilience is the capacity to withstand or recover quickly from difficulties. For me, resilience is about the ability to bounce back from something hard, stressful, or challenging, and then adapt and move on without getting stuck or giving up. Permission is approval to do something, the act of giving formal authorization. And for the purpose of this discussion, permission is about giving it to yourself, not necessarily receiving it from others. So, if any of this resonates with you, one way or the other, I think this episode is for you. Here's what I've been finding. For me, resilience sounds like this. I can handle it. I'll figure it out. This is just a season. I don't need help. I'll deal with my feelings later. I'll be fine. Does any of that sound familiar? Permission, the kind I don't really allow myself, sounds more like this. Go sit down and rest. I'm allowed to want something else. I can change my mind. I get to be considered in my own life. Forgive yourself for all of it. I'm allowed to need support. Be yourself. By the way, do you know who that is? Do you remember who yourself is? And if not, give yourself permission to explore that. All of this is really hard for me. But you know what isn't hard? You know what I'm really good at? Resilience. And I want to say this clearly. I don't think resilience is a problem. I think it's a gift. It's gotten me through a lot. The problem is when resilience becomes my only response. My endurance becomes the measure of whether I'm doing life right or not. So remember all those changes I made? Here's what I notice. I didn't ask myself, do I want this? I asked myself, can I handle this? I didn't ask who or what would support me. I asked, what's the right thing to do? I never asked myself what I might need. I just said, this needs to be done, and I'm going to figure it out. I think a lot of women, especially in our world, are familiar with this kind of wiring. We're praised for being capable. We're praised for being steady. We're praised for being the one who steps up. And over time, it can start to feel like survive first, reflect later. Here's the problem. Later doesn't come unless you choose it. So let's talk about what over resilience can look like. For me, it can look like emotional flatness, loss of motivation, irritability that turns into guilt, quiet resentment, feeling like I'm living someone else's life, doing all the right things, but not feeling alive. Saying that out loud doesn't mean I'm broken. It tells me I've been strong for a long time. And I might need support, space, and a choice. When I look back at my own decisions, leaving relationships, changing careers, moving states, becoming a caregiver, I realize I've gotten good at doing really hard things. But I haven't mastered asking a gentler question. And that question might be, when do I get to be the chosen one in my own life? If that hits you in the chest, you're not alone. Here's the question that's starting to shift things for me. What if the goal isn't to stop being resilient? What if the goal is to consult permission first and then choose resilience on purpose? Permission first could be, do I want this? What would make this sustainable? What am I allowed to want? What needs to change so I don't disappear? Then resilience becomes a tool, not a personality trait. I want to connect this back to why I built this podcast: connection and community. That's it. I wanted to connect back to the horse deal. I wanted to connect back to the community. And to enhance those two themes, next, I will be launching Finding Center Retreats, a space I am creating to elevate, celebrate, and rejuvenate women of the Western performance horse industry. I'm doing it because I've given myself permission to do something meaningful to me and to the women of this industry. To do it, I'm reaching into my toolkit and pulling out resilience with wholehearted gratitude. Whatever the task, the job, or the career, I want it to fill my cup. I also want to fill the cup of others. In the very first episode of this podcast, Sophie Butters spoke beautifully about filling each other's cups, and that's what this show was designed for. The women I talk to, trainers' wives, breeders, owners, mothers, trainers, and the women behind the scenes, are often the strongest people in the room. They know duty, they know sacrifice, they know adaptability. What they rarely know is how to give themselves permission to do what they need to do for themselves. So, ladies, I invite you to create a space in your life that includes you. I want to end this episode with something simple, not advice, just an invitation. Pick one area of your life and ask, what am I allowed to want or be? Choose a permission statement. I'm allowed to be tired. I'm allowed to ask for help. I'm allowed to not have it all figured out. I'm allowed to want more. I'm allowed to choose myself without an explanation. And then, this is key, take one small action that matches it. Ask someone to take one task off your plate. Delegate it. Take a walk. Take a drive. Sit down and read a book. Do any of these things just for you. Take a minute and write down what you want. Don't just edit it. Don't edit it. Just feel it. Just feel into something that you really want and write it down. See how that feels. And finally, send a message that creates connection, not logistics. So many of our text messages or emails are about planning and schedules, work, responsibilities. Send something that connects. Reach out and say, I hope you're having a good day. Or, I could use a few minutes. Can we talk? Send that to a friend or a relative. Doing that is permission. Doing any of those things, that's giving yourself permission. That's how you begin to come back to yourself. If you're listening and this resonated, I want you to know this. You're not weak because you're tired. You're not failing because you feel flat. You may simply be someone who has been resilient for a very long time, and you might be ready for permission. In the next solo episode, I'll tell you about something I read in a book that stopped me in my tracks. I'm going to talk about why sometimes the harder part isn't knowing what you want, it's letting yourself receive something good. Until then, write down what you want, take a walk, breathe, connect with someone. And if this episode reminded you of someone who's holding a lot together, please share it. Before I go, one quick note. I'm not a therapist, a counselor, or a coach. I'm simply sharing my experience and what I'm learning in real time. If anything I've shared brings something up for you, I hope you'll talk with someone you trust or reach out to a professional who can support you. Thank you for listening, and tune in next time for The Trainer's Wife.